Well, happy Friday, everybody. Great to see all of you joining us for this program, which we call The Slate. It is a DraftKings show. We'll take you up until 5 minutes of 6 because there are Madden Sims coming up this evening. So we have you on Twitch. We have you on Twitter, on the DK Nation Twitter stream, and also on YouTube. Brendan Glasheen here tonight with you, joined by the usual Friday crew, Steve Buchanan and Matt LaMarca. Both are contributors at DraftKings. Steve, in particular, a co-host of the Unreasonable Odds podcast, and you can find LaMarca's very hard work on the DK Playbook and also on DK Live. Gentlemen, hi. Sunday, we've got 2 big football games. Steve, what's the latest temperature of Championship Sunday?
Very hot. Very hot. We just need Joe Burrow to knock out the Chiefs and everything will be right in the world.
Elaborate, please. What's your take?
It's probably not very appropriate. There's a couple of family members that I just don't need to see anymore. I think you can figure it out from there.
Oh, I see.
It might be the quarterback of the other team, if you know what I'm saying.
Yep.
Joe Burrow needs to be the hero that America needs.
Well, unfortunately, there's no props about Jackson Mahomes or
Hey, whoa, watch it.
Jay Mahomes.
I mean, I don't even know how old he is, so you got to be careful.
Oh, that's true. Well,
the wife's fair game.
TikTok.
The wife's fair game. Wife's favorite game. Yes. Oh boy.
All right. Well, I'm sure we'll get more on that from Steve about Joe Burrow and what he thinks he can do on Sunday in the AFC title game. How about you, LaMarca? How do you feel about Championship Sunday? What's your latest take as we are 2 days away from, actually quite literally from now, 48 hours from that, about 48 hours from that NFC title game as well?
I just hope that we're not going to get a little bit of a letdown. I think, we were pretty spoiled last week, right? The general consensus is that the divisional round is sort of the best weekend of football. You get, the 4 best teams in each conference. And we had, 3 games decided by field goals and the 4th game went into overtime. So it was awesome. That Chiefs-Bills game is up there with the best game I've ever seen. I was on the wrong end of it, unfortunately. I had the Bills, and I felt pretty good when they took the lead with 13 seconds left. But just another, sort of reason to believe that you're never safe when Patrick Mahomes is on the other sideline.
Right. Coaching, of course, was a question mark at the end of that game as well, and you wonder if Zach Taylor and the Bengals can basically stay out of the way on a coaching front when it comes to Sunday and not mess it up. I guess we'll start with the AFC title game. We can work in some DFS as well. Maybe LaMarca, we can get an NBA thought from you before we wrap up, but we're pretty much talking football here for the next 50 minutes. So any questions you have, any thoughts, takes, we'll take them and discuss, but we're really going to hammer these 2 games. Cincinnati and Kansas City, the line is 7, Steve, and right now plus money on the Bengals getting 7 points. So folks might be intrigued. I get a feeling, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong. If you want the Chiefs, get them now because there's a possibility this can move to 7.5 by Sunday, maybe even 8.
I think this is definitely going to move to 7.5. I mean, you look at the numbers there when you're getting even money on the underdog, there's a good shot, and minus 120 for the Chiefs. I mean, the line movement's going to come at some point. It's just a matter of when it's going to happen because I believe it was actually minus 120 for the Chiefs as late as last night too. So that, that movement hasn't happened yet, but it's certainly trending in that direction. If you haven't bet on this game, and you do like the Bengals, I would say to wait because you're most likely going to get that 7.5. So if you haven't made your bet yet, just kind of hold off for a little bit. You will get that 7.5. With that being said, I still don't hate the Bengals winning this game. And, everybody is all on the Chiefs and rightfully so. I mean, how can you not like the Chiefs after what you saw in that game last week against the Bills and what they were able to do to come back? The problem that I have here with liking the Chiefs is that this just sets up so well for Joe Burrow, right? Just a couple of weeks ago when these 2 teams met, he threw for over 400 yards against this team. Not saying he's going to do that again, but Joe Burrow thrives against man coverage. The Chiefs run a ton of man coverage, and this is a big reason why Jamar Chase went for over 200 yards in that game. Against man coverage, Joe Burrow's averaging over 9 yards per pass attempt. That is absurd. That is an absurd number. And then when they blitz him, He was almost perfect when the Titans blitzed him in that. I'm sorry, when the Chiefs blitzed him in that last game that they faced each other. And also when they faced each other a couple of weeks ago, Joe Burrow threw the ball 20 plus yards 7 times. He completed 5 of those for 191 yards and 2 of those touchdowns. There's a lot to like about the Bengals. Okay. I didn't talk about the Chiefs. I don't really need to tell you about the Chiefs, but 7 points for me, it's just too much. That's too much, especially when we're probably going to get 7.5 at this point. All the money is on the Chiefs on the spread and the money line. And I get it. You're giving Joe Burrow too many points.
So from a game script perspective, when they first met just a couple weeks ago now, or maybe about a month ago now, when you do the math out, 14-0, Kansas City got up in this game. So from a DFS standpoint, you probably like the idea of using a Burrow or even checking out some of his props because you figure from a game script standpoint, playing from behind. And I think we've also found out, to Steve's point, for this matchup for the Bengals, LaMarca, Kansas City's defense can be had. Buffalo's proven that. Even Pittsburgh putting up 21 points. The game before that was against Denver and the Broncos, and that outfit scored 24 points. Where do you stand on the spread in this game, LaMarca?
I'm a bit conflicted. I do think that 7.5 might be a touch high. But if it's below 7, I think that the Chiefs make a lot of sense. More importantly than what happened with Kansas City last week, because we all know Kansas City played great, was the Bengals really skated by against the Titans. They allowed 9 sacks.
Yes.
They won by 3 points on a last-second field goal after Ryan Tannehill played one of the worst quarterback performances of the season, right? I mean, Tannehill really should be sending Jimmy Garoppolo a thank you card or something, because I think Jimmy G has gotten a lot of the heat as far as bad quarterback play has gone in this postseason. But Tannehill last week was 15 of 24 for 220 yards with 1 touchdown and 3 interceptions, including that huge interception at near the end of the game that allowed the Bengals to get into field goal range for Money Mac, aka the swaggiest kicker in football. The Titans the Bengals are clearly going to need to play better than they did last week if they want to cover this number. But I think that's possible, right? I mean, the Titans have a pretty decent pass rush. The Chiefs have some good down linemen with Jones on the interior. You got Melvin Ingram. But if Cincinnati can just shore up their protection a little bit, I agree with Steve that Burrow should be able to pick that back end apart. So I'm a little bit torn on this game. I think the easiest bet here for me is you just take the over. That game last week with the Bills and the Chiefs, they were at 28 points at halftime. It was like a slow start to the game.
Yeah.
And then they hit the nitrous button. Cue Vin Diesel, Fast and the Furious. They were granny shifting, not double clutching like they were supposed to. And then they figured it out, and this game just absolutely flew over the total. It wouldn't shock me if we see something similar this week.
65 points. And I'm going back to that last meeting. So Steve, you can jump in and tell me who cares about the last game, but it's an overreaction. I feel like the number going up to 54.5 because the total for that game at the time was 51. Do you have a developing thought on the total being at 54.5?
No, I think it's fine. Like, if I put it this way, if you looked at that number, if it was at 51 for this game, the sportsbooks would be getting annihilated. Yeah. Right. Like they would have to throw that number back up because the perception is that these are 2 high scoring teams, which they are. But you have that game against Buffalo with the Chiefs involved. Recency bias is a real thing. You look at that, and if there was a total of 51, they would have to shoot that number up immediately. They'd be getting annihilated at this. So that's why I think you're seeing something like 54.5. It stayed relatively the same. I don't think that that's really changed at all. So I'm not surprised it's at this number, but yeah, I would hate to be sweating the under in this game. Especially like with the numbers I just gave you about Burrow. And like I said, I wasn't even talking about Mahomes and the Chiefs at all. So 54.5, I think, is a really well set number. And the money's on the over, as you can see, minus 115 on the over. So right. I like this number here. I still like taking the over. are we in danger of getting an under in this one because it's so high? Yes, potentially. Because like LaMarca said, this game is going into the half and it really wasn't much. And then it was like really the fourth quarter on when we saw the majority of the points scored in any quarter. So, there is I think a case can be made for the under on this one, but like, I don't want the under. Like, I don't want to be sweating that crap. Like, give me the over all day.
For thinking under, though, wouldn't the temptation of the under would be, can Cincinnati get theirs? Because the team total for Kansas City is at 31.5. That one, to me, feels a little more enticing. Their number, as opposed to the game's over-under, LaMarca. Kansas City's at 31.5, their team total. Like, that, to me, feels like they'll get there. The fear of, the thought of an under might be, do the Bengals get there? Like, do we run the risk? The risk we could be thinking is that the Chiefs could blow these guys out. Can the Bengals get to their number, which is, if you do the math out, sorry,
it's going to be 7 points less than the Chiefs total.
Right. Yes. 22. Okay. 8 points less. Actually, 9 points less. 22.5.
Well, that doesn't make a lot of sense given a 7-point spread. I think if you're not worried about the Bengals, or if you are worried about the Bengals being able to keep up with the Chiefs offense, then you should just bet the Chiefs -7.
Yeah.
Right. I think if you're trying to say, well, I like the Chiefs to hit their over, but I'm worried about the Bengals hitting theirs, then just bet Chiefs -7. It just makes more sense to do it that way. But I think that this game has a few different paths. I have the most likely outcome as Chiefs winning by a touchdown. That makes the most sense to me. That's why I am happy I have a ticket. Chiefs -6.5. I took that on a look ahead line. I honestly may hedge it and grab some Bengals at 7.5 later before kickoff and play for the super narrow middle.
Did you get that look ahead before Buffalo KC went final? Meaning it was a
Correct.
look ahead line. Okay. Got it. All right.
Yeah, I bet Buffalo and the Chiefs at 6.5 points.
I mean,
whichever team ended up winning.
The look ahead lines are up right now for the Super Bowl that you can look at. Like, you can see Niners and Chiefs. So the Chiefs are 3-point favorites there. Rams versus Chiefs. The Chiefs are 2.5-point favorites. Rams with Bengals. The Rams are 3.5-point favorites, and then Niners Bengals. Niners are 2.5-point favorites. So if you feel, if you have a lean for any of those or think that those games could come to fruition, this is the time to do it. And those will look ahead lines. I'll walk you through it. Go back up, go to football odds. Go up. God damn it, Glass, up.
I am up. I'm as
right
up
there,
as I can
football.
go.
You just had it. Football odds. Keep going up. You dope. Go to the top of the page.
Right there.
Oh my God.
That's what he's on. He's on that screen.
No. See where it says sportsbook /football odds /NFL odds. You want to click. Oh my God. Trust me, they're there.
Okay.
Now click NFL. Okay.
That's right where he just was.
It was just there.
Well, I'm on it and you're not, so I don't care. They're there. Trust me, they're there. It's where, you know what? You might be in a different market. That's why. You might be in a different market. But just trust me, they're up there because I'm literally looking at it right now.
Okay. Parts unknown. We don't reveal where
I will say I like betting the look ahead lines if you have a certain feel. Like, I knew based off watching the Bengals last week get dominated by that Titans front four. Like, I knew I was happy to grab either the Chiefs or the Bills laying less than a touchdown. So if you're looking at the Super Bowl and you're saying, okay, I want whoever you think is the best team, like, you can lock it in. And if that matchup doesn't come to fruition, the bet just gets refunded to you. So it's kind of no risk if you see something that you like.
Is there a prop that you're eyeing, Steve Buchanan, in particular Joe Burrow? Because you are very high on Mr. Burrow, his passing yards prop at 286.5.
Yep. I do like that one too. I actually like one of the conference specials that the sportsbook does have up right now as well. You can get Mahomes and Burrow to combine for 600 plus passing yards.
Got it right here.
I mean, we're basically asking them to both go over 300 passing yards. I mean, that feels like it is extremely possible in a game that has an over-under of just under 55 points. If that's the case, they're not going to be doing that by going on the ground, right? They're going to be getting to that. So let me put it this way. If you like the over, this also might be a way to look at it this way. Like, do you think the over is going to happen, or do you think that both of these guys are going to get over 600 passing yards combined? Joe Burrow, like I mentioned earlier, had over 400 in that game prior. Not saying he's going to do that again, but imagine if he had 446 and then you needed Patrick Mahomes to make up the difference. I think you're going to get there. I have a funny feeling you're going to get there if Patrick Mahomes is the one left picking up the slack. So over 600 passing yards, plus 140. I like that. I like those plus odds a lot.
You got a thought, Lamarca?
Honestly, most of the props that have caught my attention are in the other game. I will say that one, Travis Kelce or Jamar Chase to have 125 at plus 200, that don't seem too bad for me. I mean, Jamar Chase, again, what did he have in their last matchup, Steve? Like 260?
Yeah.
And last week was the first time in the past 2 postseasons that Kelce was under 100 receiving yards in a game. So it seems like he's in a nice bounce back spot.
But he was right there. He was at like 96, I think it was, against Buffalo.
Yep, it was 96.
Okay. So, and yeah, right. Like I said, over 100 in all the other playoff games over the past 2 seasons for the Chiefs. So I think asking one of those 2 guys to get to 125 plus seems pretty reasonable to me.
The only thing I don't like about that, because this one's come up a couple times, is that so Kelce's only gone over this number once. So it's almost like you're getting a boost on Chase to go over 125, right? That's kind of what it feels like, because if you're looking at this, what are the chances that Kelce goes over 125? It feels pretty low, right? Like he's gotten to 100 a number of times. There's no doubt about that. But asking for 125 feels like a lot, especially more so because we're kind of getting more out of guys like Byron Pringle. Like Pringle's been getting like 7+ targets for 5 straight weeks now. Like he's getting more and more involved. So that takes away some looks that maybe Travis Kelce was getting. So I don't hate that because, for me, if I'm taking that, I'm really just banking on Jamar Chase going over 125 plus receiving yards at plus 200. Great number. If Kelce's the one to get there, even better. But to me, that's more of a boost on Chase. I'm not really banking on Kelce as the guy to be the one to get there.
Chase against Buffalo, 109 receiving. Chase against the Raiders in the wild card round, 116. So he's been just about there. Do you at all factor? So Gabriel Davis goes off for Buffalo. I'd have to go back and watch. Did they do a good job of taking Diggs out of the game? I guess a little bit, right? Didn't they?
Davis was 100%. So let me put this in a Patriot term because, I'm so used to Adam Coughlin being on here. Gabriel Davis turned into the Patriots version of Hunter Henry, which doesn't get much in the middle of the field or anything like that. He's primarily used in the red zone. And that showed with the red zone targets that Davis was getting. Like if you looked at the red zone targets for the Bills, it went Stephon Diggs and then it went to Gabriel Davis. Like Davis was getting so many red zone targets, and Dawson Knox too. Gabriel Davis was getting so many red zone targets near the end of the year that it was like that was almost his primary, like what they used him for. And it just obviously came to fruition so many times in that game. But I don't want to say that they really took out Diggs because, Diggs was involved, but Buffalo, kind of like the Chiefs, they spread it out so much that even though Diggs is a wide receiver 1, you don't need to rely on him because you have so many other capable pass catchers on that team.
No, I get that. It more so just to make sure that we get to that number of 125. I'm wondering they did a good enough job to limit him from a big day as opposed to.
I think Chase is a tier above Stephon Diggs.
Okay.
No disrespect to Steph Diggs. He's a great player.
That's a fair argument. Yeah.
Excellent wide receiver. But he was like I think he was a 4th round pick. Jamar Chase was the number 5 overall pick and just turned in. He set the Bengals franchise record in receiving yards in his first year. Like the kid is super special, explosive with the ball in his hands. I think, to steer it back to fantasy, like Justin Jefferson and Tyreek Hill are the top 2 dynasty receivers right now. And it's really not close to anybody else being in that tier.
All right. We will make our way to DFS. I think it makes more sense to stay on the sports book, and then we'll look at a bigger picture DFS outlook for both games, because if we give you a take on one of these teams, you might be able to figure out on the other end from a DFS standpoint who you could lean the other way. So it's better just to keep it all sandwiched together. So we moved to Niners Rams. Was around 3. It's been at 3.5 now for the last couple days. San Francisco, of course, the dog. A lot of San Fran fans are buying those tickets at SoFi Stadium for this week, which is no surprise. That's been the case really since the Rams moved there. It's a very great place to go for a visiting fan. That's Los Angeles for you. Totals at 45.5. You can get the Niners on the money line at plus 155. Of course, they finished the regular season against each other. Stafford throws the pick in overtime. Jimmy Garoppolo leads a game-winning drive. Or he led a game-tying drive. Or yeah, I guess a game-winning drive and then the pick that sealed the deal. So, but as we've come to find out with Jimmy Garoppolo here in these playoff games, whether it's indoors in Dallas, outdoors in cold Lambeau and snow, this guy is hard to trust at the end of these games. It feels like he wants to give them away. All that said, in the Rams, of course, that Stafford throw to Cup to seal the deal against Tampa. Man, where are we at on this one, Steve? How do you feel about the line, total? Take us wherever you'd like.
Listen, I mean, I'm not going to lie. Like, I've lost more money betting against the 49ers than any other team this season. Like, I'm still trying to figure out why this team is good. But I continue to lose against them. So I'm the worst person to ask about this game, which leads me to saying I like the Rams, which really sucks because the Rams are probably going to lose at this point. And it's even worse because I have a Rams to win the Super Bowl ticket that I placed back in November. So, there's a lot on the line here for me.
Did you place that when they got Miller?
That is exactly when I placed it. That is
plus
correct.
800?
Yes, it is. Yep, correct. A little weird that you know that.
It was big news when they made the trade, and
it was, and that was before the lines really started to get adjusted back again too. With that said, I just can't get over Jimmy Garoppolo, and the jury is out there. He's an awful quarterback, and I would tend to agree. I mean, quite frankly, the Packers only scored 10 points in that game. Jimmy Garoppolo tried to give them at least 14 more with some of the passes that he was throwing out there. So we could be looking at a different NFC Championship game. It really should be Packers-Rams, but that's a different story. Jimmy Garoppolo is under pressure in that game about 48% of the time. Sounds like a lot, but he only dropped back 23 times. They really try to mask Jimmy Garoppolo as much as possible because I think everybody knows that if you need a game for Jimmy Garoppolo to come back and win you, it's not really going to happen. Now, it did happen at the end of the season. That was a really impressive drive against this Rams team when he went down the field for 80 plus yards. That was a good drive. That's before all these injuries started to creep up. So if he's going to be under that type of pressure again this week against that defensive line, that's where it gets really, really dicey for me. So the 49ers, if they're going to win this game, they need to do everything they can to keep the ball out of Jimmy's hands and putting it in the hands of Deebo Samuel and Elijah Mitchell. That's how you're going to beat the Rams, because in the 2 games that they've played, Mitchell and Samuel have been stellar against this team. That is their key to victory. I just don't think, and it's weird to say because the 49ers have had the Rams number this season, I just feel like the Rams offense, it's so hard to bet against. That's my problem. There's so many ways the Rams can beat you. I can't say that about the Niners. The Niners can beat you on the ground. That's really where it starts and ends for me. So I'm siding with the Rams again. I'm prepared to lose again, but that's just how it's going all season long. I don't see how the Niners are going to win this game, but they've done it 2 times. It's like such crap analysis. Like I'm contradicting myself basically, but I'm on the Rams.
The stat on Shanahan LaMarca, he's won 6 in a row against McVay and the Rams. So that's been a popular trend folks are pointing to. And to Steve's point, I mean, going into the game against the Packers, you're worried about Fred Warner's status. You're worried about Nick Bosa's status. Then at the very end of the game, yes, Gold hits the field goal and it's full celly and it's close shots on the camera of Aaron Rodgers. But we forget Deebo was limping off the field when he got that first down to set up the kick. George Kittle kind of always limping around. So they are really being held together by Elmer's glue at this stage in the postseason. I'm sure they'll get Deebo and Kittle ready to go. And of course, Deebo can beat you in so many ways. The backfield dynamic really is fun to watch. It's pretty dynamic. All that being said, are you with Steve on this? Is the right call Rams -3.5, or kind of like I asked with that first game, I don't really know, because that's why I'm asking both of you. Is it better to wait for the Rams and get it at 3, or is this going to stay put at 3.5?
I don't think you're getting 3.
It's going to be interesting to see what this number does. The Rams have gotten the majority of the spread bets here, 55% and 61% of the dollars. So I don't really foresee it going back down to 3. And that's a good thing because I really like the 49ers in this game. Steve made fun of me for liking the 49ers last week against the Packers. And I like them. I think I like them more this week than I did last week. If you look at that last meeting with the 49ers and the Rams, yes, the 49ers fell in a hole and they had to make a comeback late.
Mm-hmm.
The total yardage in that game was San Francisco 449, Rams 265.
Yeah.
Massive difference. Both teams had 2 turnovers. So it's not like, I think Jimmy Garoppolo has gotten some unnecessary hate. Is he a good quarterback? No, but he's not a bad quarterback either. I think he's fine. I heard an analyst say, like, he's not a first-class quarterback, but he's not in the back of the plane either. He's somewhere in the middle of the plane. And I think I'm okay with that analogy. And it doesn't matter because they're just going to...
Matthew Stafford here, he's skated by. The throw to Cup is what everyone remembers, but now the snap over his head's not his fault, but he nearly fumbles the ball to give it away. He threw 2 picks in that game that you're referencing. Garoppolo threw 2 picks as well, and essentially has had to be, which Sean McVay loves, a game manager against the Cardinals and game managed his way against the Rams, against the Bucks. Keep going.
Can I jump in real quick?
Sure.
But we're talking about the mistakes that both of these quarterbacks can make. And that is something that needs to be, talked about.
Yep.
But if you were going to make a mistake against the opposing secondary, which one should you not be making the mistake against more? It's the Rams. It is 100% the Rams secondary. And with the throws that we saw last week from Jimmy Garoppolo, if there is a secondary that's going to actually be able to pick him off, it's the Rams. I don't know what was going on with the Packers last week. That was just unbelievable to come out guns a-blazing like that and then just poo-poo all over yourself for the next, whatever it was, 55 minutes of the game. It was incredible, a Jekyll and Hyde show. But the Rams are going to be able to take advantage of the mistakes that Jimmy Garoppolo makes, whether it's fumbling the ball behind the line of scrimmage or throwing one of those pick sixes. The Rams are going to take advantage of that. So that's my only thing. So I know both guys are very prone to mistakes. Stafford threw the most pick six in the league during the regular season, 4. That's bad. That's real bad. But Jimmy Garoppolo, from what I'm seeing, from what we've all saw, is just a mistake waiting to happen.
I just don't think he's going to have to throw the ball that much, Steve.
Well, that's
and
the
when
thing.
he does throw the ball, it'll be, off play action, finding wide open guys type of thing. Kind of like what we've seen when the Rams and 49ers have played their previous 2 contests.
Yep.
I just think that I don't know if I necessarily buy that Kyle Shanahan has this huge edge against Sean McVay, but I think that his team is constructed to play well in this matchup. So, I know the Rams have a bunch of game wreckers on the defensive side of the ball. San Francisco's got a couple too. And I just think that them getting more than a field goal here is enough to push me onto the direction of the 49ers.
Stafford in each of the 2 regular season games, 2 picks against San Francisco. And to Lamarcus' point, when they met very early in the year, San Fran improved to 4-5. Rams fell to 7-3. Jimmy Garoppolo only had to throw it 19 times, and he completed it 15 times. That's the kind of game you're envisioning, Lamarca.
That's
right?
what I'm hoping for as a Rams backer. Yes.
And they won.
A Niners
31-10. 31-10. So I'm sensing that. Well, I guess Lamarca's take would lean towards an under 45.5. Hey, it's close.
I don't have a great feel on the total either way.
Yeah.
If the 49ers are effective, and they put up, they've put up 31 and 27 in their 2 matchups versus the Rams. Granted, one of those was an overtime game, but they've put points on the board, and, the Rams offense, even if the 49ers do a good job, they still have some explosive players. So I think this is a pretty fair number. I think that, unlike last game where I was just like, take the over because they'd have to set that total in the 60s for me to not take the over with the Chiefs and the Bengals. This one I think is pretty fairly set.
What do you think, Steve?
I like the over on this one. It opened at 46.5. It's come down a point since then. Not a real big difference here, but I'm on the Rams side. So if I'm on the Rams side, then I need to like the over on this one.
Right.
Just because if that means that Jimmy Garoppolo is throwing the ball more, then I'm leading that, okay, mistakes are going to be made and the Rams are going to be able to score on offense and defense. So if I'm on the side of the Rams, I'm on the over in this one. So at 45.5, I would be inclined to take the over.
Okay. How about from a prop standpoint? We're going to make our way to DFS any minute, but just any player prop considerations?
I have one that I really like in this game.
Yeah, LaMarca, you did say that you were looking more towards this game, so please.
Take Elijah Mitchell over 17.5 rushing attempts.
Yeah.
I think that they pound the rock. As long as this game doesn't get out of hand. And again, I like the 49ers, so I don't think this game gets out of hand. But Mitchell has been a workhorse for the 49ers when he's been active. He had only 17 carries last week against the Packers, but prior to that, 27, 21, 21, 22, 27, 27 in the previous 6 games. So I think he gets at least 20 in this spot, even with Debo getting, his handful of carries out of the backfield. I think 17.5 is just too low of a number for Mitchell here.
So that's why that number is how it is, you think, because of Debo? Is that why it's at 17.5? Is there the fear of Debo taking it, I don't know, 7 to 10 times?
Yeah, that plus the fact that Mitchell only had 17 last week. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you've got the Debo concern. But again, I think there's enough carry that Mitchell can get into the 20s. Debo can get his 6 to 8, and everybody's happy, including me.
You got something, Steve, on a prop?
I do like that one with Mitchell because even if the 49ers are behind, which I'm hoping for, I
love this back and forth. He's on one side, you're on the other. It's like, well, if I get what I want, this is what I think.
this is called content. But even if the 49ers are behind, it's pivotal that they give the ball to Mitchell because he's arguably been one of their best playmakers aside from Debo Samuel. The last 2 games of the regular season, and this has really affected George Kittle a lot too. Mitchell and Debo have combined for over 60% of the total touches on this team. They are trying to mask Garoppolo as much as humanly possible. So that means handing the ball off, quick screens to them, or throwing behind the line of scrimmage, whatever it is. They're trying to mask him as much as possible because he's dealing with like 19 injuries. Like this is what Matt Stafford was dealing with in the beginning of the season when he had a back injury, a neck injury, an ego injury, all these things that was going on at one time. Injury. Yeah, all these things at the same time. So if that's how they continue to run this offense, then these guys are going to be getting the ball. So I do like that one a lot. I'm also taking the overs on Odell Beckham. I think it's quite clear that this offense is being tailored to Kupp and Odell Beckham. Obviously Kupp's numbers are always absurd. His rushing yards, this one is 101.5 yards. His receptions is at 7.5 with juice. I think it was minus 145 this morning. Minus 145 this morning when I saw it.
Yep. Still at that.
Getting plus money on Beckham to go over 5. I mean, we saw how quickly they were giving him the ball to start that last game. I think he's going to get the same type of attention once again. So I love plus 120 on over 4.5 for Odell Beckham. That just feels like a reception too low.
Very good. I'm wondering too, I know Debo's number has been right around here at 4.5 the last couple of playoff games. It's a plus money here. I wonder if there's any consideration by Kyle Shanahan to expect the Rams are going to expect Debo out of the backfield. What if they do decide to put Debo out as a receiver and get him more involved as a pass catcher? I wonder that.
I don't like it at 4.5. I would like it much more at 3.5. They want to run the ball with him. I mean, he's so explosive when he's running the ball. Like that's where you're getting the most out of Debo. Not saying he's a bad receiver by any means. That's nothing against that. But at the number it's at plus 4.5, that just feels like, again, that feels like a reception too high now. So for Debo, not saying that he can.
If I'm taking a Debo over, I'm just taking the combined rushing receiving yard prop.
Okay.
That way I have outs.
Which is not there.
No matter what his usage is going to be.
Okay.
I feel like
there at the moment.
The books really aren't still aren't treating him as a running back. I think that's half the problem. That's why you're not getting some of those numbers, so that's something you can also take advantage of too. If you feel like that 4.5 is too high because they're running with him so much, then you should be looking at the under. But I feel like the books are still not treating him as more of a running back than he is a wide receiver.
We've done our fair share of Jimmy Garoppolo talk, but his number, I think, has moved like 10 yards down passing yards this week. And that's at plus money now, 232.5. That is a low number. I understand, like, recency bias, as Steve said, is a real thing, but you're going to be at SoFi. You're not in a blizzard at Lambeau. He's going to have to throw some. Even the game Lamar guy referenced that they played head-to-head first time around, I think he was still in the 200s-ish, and he only threw it 19 times. Plus money on 232.5 on the over for Garoppolo.
Yeah, interesting Jimmy Garoppolo fact. Yeah. He led the league in yards per completion this season. 12.7 yards per completion. So
he threw like 9 times.
Well, that's the benefit of the play action.
Steve, he only threw it 8 times, 2 years ago in the NFC title game against Green Bay.
Yep.
8 throws.
Sorry,
Lamar, you had a thought? Keep going.
No, I'm just saying he can be a low volume, high efficiency type of passer when he gets into the right game script.
Okay. I was wrong. 182.
I would take the over if it also included the yards that the Rams are running it back to the end zone when they pick them off. Then I would take the over. Anything else, I'd be more inclined to take the under. But on a serious note, though, if you're on the side of Lamarca, you're taking the
sharp side.
Please. That's where the money is, pal. If you're taking the side of Lamarca with the 49ers, you should be interested in the under. If you're on my side and like the Rams to win, then you might begrudgingly be looking at the over. That's just by game script. That number's gotten so low that I'm kind of sort of liking the over.
I'm putting you on the spot. Do you know where it opened? It was in the 240s, right?
I believe it was 241.5. Don't quote me on that, but I believe it was 241.5.
What do you think's led to that movement?
He sucks.
People hate Jimmy Garoppolo. People hate him.
I know.
There are still people. There are people that, as he has led this team to the NFC Championship game, that are still calling for Trey Lance to start. I don't get it.
You said Ryan Tannehill should be thanking Jimmy Garoppolo. Matt Stafford should be thanking him too, because this is even compelling. Over 1 pick for Stafford at minus 110. It's that drastic of a difference with Garoppolo.
Well, the juice is drastic. You're talking about 40 cents difference. So yes.
The juice is drastic. I'm talking about the reality, like watching the games. Like Stafford is just as capable as Garoppolo to throw a pick.
Put it this way too. Like some things it feels like egregious. Like it still stays that way. Like every single game, Tom Brady's rushing yards was at 1.5. I can't tell you how many times I made money on taking over 1.5 because he consistently went over, yet it never changed. Like the guy was averaging almost 4 per game, yet the over under was a yard and a half. So sometimes just be happy that the books aren't paying attention or whatever, and just take it.
I remember what game I remember one of the games Steve's talking about was the Monday night game against the Giants when Brady had a long run, proved his mobility.
He's got some wiggle, kid. They know what they say about Tommy Wiggles. I don't
think anyone calls him that, but
I do sometimes.
Okay. All right. Sharp.
Tommy retired.
I think that Matt Stafford has some Eli to his game. And I mean that as a compliment and an insult. There are some weeks where he comes out and you're like, man, this guy might be the best quarterback in the league. And then there are other weeks when he comes out and you're like, man, this guy's a quarterback.
Yeah.
This guy's playing football. I mean, you look at his numbers. He was the MVP favorite after the first half of the season. Yep. Then towards the end of the regular season, you had people questioning whether or not they would be better if they had never traded Jared Goff. And now in the past 2 weeks, he's put together 2 really nice playoff games. So which version of Stafford do we get this week?
Oh, and he can still play great and throw a pick. I'm not saying he's going to completely suck, but it feels like, all right, like he's just as capable. 2 games against the Niners in the regular season, 2 picks in each game. So maybe I'll take a look at that.
Hey, I'm just going to say it. Jared Goff had a pretty decent year.
You serious?
I'm serious. for all of the crap that was, the Detroit Lions.
Were you watching Lions games when everyone else was watching?
Fantastic 2-win season for Jared Goff. You don't see much prettier 2-win seasons.
I'll be honest. I watched a decent amount of the Lions this year because I would always bet them on the spread because they were a cover machine.
They were.
The Lions were one of the best cover teams in the league this year.
Well, to your point,
I was pretty
paying attention except you. You're paying attention, and you'll take advantage of that.
Stop hitting on me.
Let's go to DFS. We have about 13 minutes, unless we have anything else sportsbook wise that we'd like to discuss. Nothing. I did not see anything about the quarterback's brother or the wife. I didn't see anything on there props wise. So,
you know where you can find that? On twitter.com.
Great website.
Yeah.
Not really. Okay. 2-game slate. It's the last classic slate of the season, everybody. So get involved. There is a Millie Maker on DraftKings. $3.5 million in prizes.
Wow. 1 million to first.
1 million to first. So what's the winning lineup? That's why we're here. Do you have to play Mahomes? No, you don't have to play Mahomes, but don't play Garoppolo, right? I think you got to go Burrow or Stafford. Where's the chalk going at quarterback?
Chalk should be Mahomes. It will be Mahomes. And I'm still playing Patrick Mahomes. If you wanted to get a little bit contrarian and do some Bengals stacks alongside some Chiefs players, I think stacking that game is the clear answer to the test, right? You want one of Bengals Chiefs to be your primary stack, and you want some pieces from the other side running it back. Patrick Mahomes has 2 40-point games so far this postseason. He's going to be at home again where he's really good. I mean, the guy's good everywhere. I'm sure he'd be good on the moon, but he's pretty good when they're playing.
I think Lamarcus dead.
Yeah. Okay. So that's not me either. I'm looking at you, Steve. I'm like, whoa, what's happening here?
I thought it was me. Yeah, Lamarcus, we can't hear you anymore, bud.
Look at his face.
He doesn't know what just happened. He's so confused. He's so confused.
Hello?
There you go.
There we go. Now we can hear you.
All right. Oh.
He's so petrified. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
Yeah, finish your thought.
The thought is play Patrick Mahomes.
Okay.
That's it. Let's move on.
I would say I'd be interested in the cheapest quarterback on this slate.
No.
Trey Lance is only 4,700. I mean,
that's good.
In terms of ownership on this slate for quarterback, the way that they're listed salary wise, I would also expect would be the ownership. Mahomes, then Burrow, then Stafford, then Garoppolo. I think that's how the ownership is going to shake out. And if that's the case, then I don't think you can ignore the value you're getting on Stafford at 6,300 as what's quite possibly the third highest owned quarterback on this slate. And, Lamarcus said it well. Everyone's going to be stacking that Bengals Chiefs game, and rightfully so. But Stafford has just as good a chance as anyone to put up some of those numbers that maybe Burrow might be able to put up at, maybe a 10% difference in ownership. If you want to be, might be a little bit high, but the ownership is going to be on those top 2 guys. I would use Stafford. And then if you even want to get a little bit crazy, maybe stack them with Beckham instead of Kupp. Scary to do Kupp, but on these 2-game slates, like, you got to make uncomfortable decisions if you want to be different, because everybody's going to be on Cooper Kupp. There's no way around that. Everyone's going to be on those top names like Jamar Chase and Deebo Samuel. So if you want to be a little bit different, maybe you take Stafford with Beckham, and then you put some of those chalky guys with them, because that's going to be a unique quarterback wide receiver stack. So then you take Beckham and Stafford, and then, maybe you get it with Jamar Chase in there too as well. That's just a way to differentiate yourself a little bit. And quite frankly, when you brought it up here with the game log, it's not like Beckham's not been productive. He hasn't been he's not breaking slates, but he's doing more than enough to be a difference maker.
And that was against a suspect Tampa secondary, right?
Oh, so that secondary blows. I mean, we said it many times on this show. There's going to be a reason the Bucs are going out. It's because of that secondary, and that's
right. Or getting to Brady, which they did a little bit of both. That was both of those things are on display.
Yep.
And like, it's not like, look, San Francisco's better, I think, in the secondary than Tampa, but they're no scorched earth secondary to get completely worried about, right? So
everybody was better in the secondary than Tampa.
Agreed. I'm just saying that it's not like, I think there's a chance I'm agreeing with you. I think there's a chance Beckham could be just as good of last week as he was this week.
Yeah.
This week is last week. That's what
absolutely. Stafford's not afraid to go downfield, and he's got more than enough guys to do that with Kupp, Beckham, Jefferson, all guys that can go downfield.
They fit him nice. They have hit him in very nicely, Odell Beckham, considering that Stafford and Kupp have been at each other's hips since they united this year. So what I'm sensing is, if you go Steve's approach with Stafford, you can probably load up at other positions at running back, receiver. I know Steve is a pay low at tight end guy. It feels like CJ Uzomah is going to be very highly owned because he's just been a binky for Burrow over the middle. Those seam routes, he'll be popular. But LaMarca, if you're going to go with Mahomes, I get the sense you're going to play a Hill or a Kelsey as well with him.
Yep. Probably both.
Okay. Probably both. Okay.
I think to me, there are different ways to approach this slate. Steve has one. You go with a little bit of a contrarian stack.
Yep.
I think that makes sense. From a game theory perspective, but I trust this Chiefs offense so much more. And I would rather be looking to eat some of the chalk with them and then differentiate a little bit with some of my secondary wide receivers. Like, I'll play a Mahomes, Hill, Kelsey, Pringle stack, and then I'll throw Jawan Jennings in as my final wide receiver, and then you don't really have to worry about ownership concerns anymore. So I think there are ways to play the Chiefs. You can, as Steve mentioned, Pringle has been like a very nice value recently. His production is a little bit touchdown dependent, but 7 targets in 4 of the past 5 weeks. His price really hasn't budged. So I like including him in some Chief stacks. He doesn't figure to be overly popular. Like, there are ways to do it.
You know what I love about this slate? We haven't even mentioned the running backs yet, because it's just proof that they don't really matter that much.
Well, the running backs on this slate stink.
They do, but that's the beauty of it. You can load up, as LaMarca said, secondary receivers are going to be very important to how you roster and construct your lineup. Or if you go LaMarca's route, play a Kelsey, maybe you play Kittle too. But at running back, who's paying for Joe Mixon? I mean, let's be real. Like, who's paying $6,800 for this guy with all the receivers on this slate?
Well, to be fair, if you like the Chiefs in this game, you actually should consider Mixon. Because Mixon has been so involved in the passing game lately that it's kind of starting to be hard to ignore. Like, if you look at where this season began, if he got more than 2 targets, you're like, oh, that was a nice little PPR game for Mixon. That's not the case anymore. 5 or more targets in 4 straight games. Like, they are using him in that role a lot more. And like, from a dynasty perspective, like, this is something that we've been waiting for a long time with Mixon, because if he wasn't scoring, yeah, he'll get you 20 carries, but if he's not scoring and gets you 100 yards, he's kind of a bust, right? Now they're using him so much more in the passing game that it's like, okay, the appeal is kind of starting to get there now, because while he hasn't been reaching the end zone like he was in the beginning of the year, he's making up for it with those PPR points now. And you can see it from the game log here, 2 games over that span of all those targets, 20 or more points. So it's actually kind of odd, but if you like the Chiefs in this game, Mixon is now part of that role where it's like, now you might want to consider Mixon, which feels, kind of like ass backwards, but the way they've been using him, that kind of makes sense now.
Yeah, and from a projected ownership standpoint, and you'll get some good value from an ownership standpoint on him. And I mean, he had 8 targets in that KC matchup in Week 17.
Well, that's the other thing too. With him being the most expensive running back, it's definitely going to take away the want of people to roster him, because are you going to pay up for Joe Mixon, or are you going to pay up for Jamar Chase and Cooper Kupp? You're obviously going to go to the wide receiver. So in a weird way, despite Mixon's role changing, because he's the perceived most expensive one on here, people aren't going to be quote unquote paying up for him in this game as a 7-point underdog, no less.
So outside of Cincinnati, LaMarca, you go to the other three teams and you have to worry about another guy out of the backfield, right? Because you've got Mitchell and Debo, and you've got Michelle and Akers. And then for the Kansas City Chiefs, it's McKinnon and CEH. Would it be smart to stack a team as it pertains to running backs? So therefore, no. Okay, tell me why.
Your goal.
No, it's okay. I'm just asking the question.
No, and it's a valid question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But I think if your goal is to win a GPP,
Yep.
you need to have two guys that are going to like lead their team in rushing. You know what I'm saying? You can't hope to just grab everything from one team and nothing from the other three teams and have it be enough. You need some of both pies. I think the Cam Akers versus Sony Michel split. Michel is officially donezo. He had 1 carry last week. He played on 14 snaps. Cam Akers fumbled, and they still gave him 24 carries last week, and then he fumbled again. Will there be some negative repercussions for that? I don't know, but it seems like he is the steal of the week at just 5,000 on DraftKings. But he is going to be heavy chalk. I would expect him to be the highest owned player on the slate, regardless of position.
Wow.
He's a prime fade candidate for me, though, for the reasons that LaMarca laid out. But despite all the carries, he's not doing much with them, right? Like, he's taking the ball 41 times and he's not even cracking 100 yards. Like, I get he's coming back from injury. So
I think he looked better than his numbers suggest against the Cardinals 2 weeks ago.
I agree. And it's not like the Tampa Buccaneers were an easy matchup. But if this guy's the uber chalk, I'm good. I'm good with that. I'm staying away from that one.
I think that's valid. The situation that is the most intriguing to me is Kansas City, because if one of those two guys grabs the majority of the touches, they're going to be strong plays. And
CEH could be chalky, LaMarca. He might be the guy.
No, nobody's going to play him. I think more people play McKinnon than play.
He ran the ball well last week, I thought.
McKinnon had 53 snaps last week, and CEH had 23.
Yep.
So CEH, I like him as a contrarian dart play because I think, as you said, he looked better than he's looked all season last week. He was very effective. And so I think he will be more involved this week, but I don't think that a lot of people are going to play him.
All right, we've got like a minute left. We have to get going. I think we talked about everything. Who do you guys like this weekend? So, well, I already know the answer to that. You both like Kansas City. Steve wants the Bengals, but do you like Kansas City?
I do like Kansas City, but I think there's really a realistic chance that the Bengals do pull this upset off. I really do.
To win the game, not cover. You mean win the game?
Just win outright, yes. Yep.
Okay. And then Steve is on the Rams. LaMarca is on the Niners.
Gonna lose again.
See if we'll see who's the sharp on this Friday show. I guess I don't have to worry about it because I won't be here next Friday. You guys will have Kaufman back. So
why can't you just say on Fridays?
You know what,
Flash,
I gotta tell you, it was nice to see you. I love seeing that you're doing so well for yourself. The voice of the Maine Celtics, is that their name? Maine Celtics.
They're no longer the Red Claws. They're the Maine Celtics. Not the Maine MAIN. There's an E after it.
Yes, like the state, the Maine. You're also doing the lacrosse. It's good. It's good to see you, man. And I'm happy that you're doing well for yourself. You're a hustler, and I'm proud of you.
Thanks, LaMarca. Steve, you got anything nice to say to me, or you want to just call it a show?
I like your shirt.
Thank you. You have a shirt kind of like this, don't you?
Yeah, that's why I said that.
All right. We'll leave it at that. Thank you all so much for watching the Slate. Steve, are you going to be on a Sunday show, though, this week? Yes?
I have no idea. We're about to get hammered by snow, so it's very up in the air.
Right. Okay. So we might be talking to you from your bunkered down location where you are right now, Sunday.
Yeah, if that even happens, yes.
Okay. Very good. And if that's the case, best of luck, everybody, with your lineups, your bets for Sunday's championship games. For Matt LaMarca, Steve Buchanan, Eamon, and Tom behind the scenes, Brendan Glasheen saying so long. You all have a safe weekend if you're in the Northeast, and be safe regardless. Take care, everybody. Thanks for watching.